And we are off and recording. Catherine, how are you?
Leonard,
Leonard,
oh my
how are
gosh.
you?
Again?
Arvid. All right, cool. Well, I guess it's 7:03. Yep, there's Catherine again. So, folks, we were just sort of talking. I shared some of the questions that were sent to me and that were posted on Facebook with Dicken. And the last question that I asked about, which I think we're going to use as a jumping off point, is how we can ensure moving forward that we're carrying the message as not truthfully, but as authentically as we can. Does that about right?
Oh.
Feels about right. All right, over to you, Dicken.
Okay.
This is so cool.
You know, it's a funny thing. Hi, everybody. And it's great to see a lot of familiar faces and to be able to meet some new people. I'm very excited about this. As you may know, this is my favorite topic. The topic is us, and who are we really, and what's this all about, kind of deal. And how do we stay authentic to the true teaching? You know, I've always encouraged people to listen to Sid, not for what he has to say, but for what occurs to you as you listen. Because that's all we can know anyways. But what occurs to people when they listen to a teacher like Sid or any true teacher, all we're doing is trying to best we can to point toward what gets in the way of us experiencing the truth of life as it is. You point toward what's in the way of experiencing the oneness of life. Or you could just say to see love everywhere. To see love everywhere, to see through the eyes of love. And in my time with Sid, you know, everybody that I knew that listened to Sid heard something different, which is the beautiful thing about insight. But you do catch up on the spirit of where to look. And I don't know about you folks, but I spent so much of my life looking at the content of psychological experience. You know, I became a psychologist. Every one of my classes was about thinking content, feeling content, behavioral content. Even unconscious thinking content, which is still content. So I spent a lot of time looking in that direction, and it got very complicated, very confusing. And I meet Sid Banks, and it wasn't so much what he said for me. It was, I was so intrigued by his presence. I think I've always thought I'm pretty calm in general. When I was around Sid, I felt like I was a neurotic mess going at 9,000 miles an hour, and I was just like jangled. Because there was so much stillness and feeling in his presence. It was almost unnerving. You couldn't help but to see what was getting in the way of your experiencing that for yourself. So it was a little bit like the movie, I Want What She's Got, I Haven't. It's like, I wanted what Sid had. I wanted to see, because he said you've already got it. But I didn't believe that, I was hopeful. I was hopeful that every one of us, as Sid would say, has perfect psychological well-being inside already. There is nothing wrong with you because who you think you are, you're not. And your true identity is everything, is whole, is wholeness, is oneness. So let me put a few words on this and then we'll open it up. Michael has questions, or if you folks have questions, I'd love to do that. But it, on a deep level, it just makes utter sense that all of life is energy. And if all of life is energy, it's, we're already part of or in an infinite field of life energy. And the great mystery of life is that out of a formless energy, this is what I love, everything shows up. Can't stop it from happening. So psychologically, I can sit here and I can't stop experience from showing up. I can feel the chair I'm sitting in. I can hear my voice. I can see eight people. Right? I can sense. I can be aware of the trees. It just keeps showing up. And that we have no control over that. It happens whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not. We're not in charge of life showing up. It's the beauty of life, is that out of nothing, life keeps showing up. Out of energy, life takes form, and it's created from that same energy. It's all the same energy. So the truth of life, there is one principle. There's only one principle, is that all of life is the energy. There is no separation. There is no difference. We're all connected to that field of energy, not as separate billiard balls on a pool table. We're connected to that energy the way in which waves are connected to the ocean. We're intimately a part of the whole field of energy. The truth of life then is unity. It's already true. You can't do anything to create connection. The connection is always already there. I can't do anything to become more loving, more compassionate, more, because it's already the truth of life. So Sid would say the experience, when any of us have a sense of wholeness, we're recognizing what's always already true. That's what he calls perfect well-being. It's already true. It's not something that comes and goes. It's not something you create. It's an experience of the wholeness that life is and that we are. The experience of that, Sid says there's no word in the English language for the feeling of being connected to life. Because as soon as you do, you go into your conceptual mind and you create a label. And any label is not it, in the same way that any label or idea or thought or belief any one of us has about love is not it. I could hold on to the best definition of love in the world, and it's not going to help me with my wife. I've tried that. Okay, now here's the deal. We're born feeling, sensing the oneness of life. We don't, as babies, we don't feel a sense of separation. We don't have labels. We don't have something should be different than it is. We don't have ideas. We haven't developed. It's called the preconceptual stage in psychology. We haven't formed concepts yet. Now, the capacity to think conceptually is one friggin' cool thing. It's really cool to have ideas and to think about things. I love thinking about things. I love having ideas. I love imagining. I love planning. I'm going to Costa Rica in a couple of weeks. Oh, I'm having so much fun thinking about going. This is what Sid calls a healthy use of the intellect. I'm watching my grandson, who's 2 years old, beginning to develop his intellect, beginning to develop his conceptual mind. And it's beautiful. Oh my gosh, he loves words. It's the most exciting thing to be able to use words. And he sings. When he learns words, he could sing. So he's singing words. And he has a little ukulele, and he can sing and strum his ukulele and stomp his feet all to the music. It's uncanny. And he'll do that for hours every day. So the conceptual mind is not the bad guy. Ego is not the bad guy. The intellect is not the bad guy. But it's misused to such an extent that it's gotten a bad rap. But in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with ideas and concepts. Nothing wrong with thinking my wife is different than me. I think it's sort of fun. You see, then the conceptual mind can be a playground. You can have fun going, I love you. It's cool. We got language, we got communication. We're not one amorphous blob, right? Non-duality is not the opposite of duality. Non-duality includes duality, or it would be just another dualistic concept. Okay, so when we're young, we start developing our ability to conceptualize because it helps us communicate, it helps us hold on to ideas that are helpful, like learning how to drive a car or a bicycle, right? You don't have to relearn it every time. Once you start getting it, you get insights, and then you have ideas about riding bikes and where to go and what to look forward to. And it can be fun, a lot of fun. But there's a downside to the conceptual mind. It creates a sense of duality. Always, which means every concept has an opposite because they're just ideas, made up ideas. So every idea we have about ourselves is just a made up idea that's not true. It's just a concept. So a concept, for example, concepts create here. But if I have a concept of I'm here, immediately I have a concept of there's a there. And I'm feeling this feeling right now, but I could feel a better feeling there later. Now I've created time. Now I've created the whole foundation for self-improvement. The whole self-improvement game is based on the conceptual mind's creating a duality where there's always a better. And it inevitably leads to dissatisfaction. And it inevitably leads to a sense of being different than other people, or being better, or not as good. So we have comparison, which is the basis of fear and insecurity. I had a lot of spiritual teachers say, as soon as you have another, you have fear. It's immediate. there's difference, there's separation, there's conflict, inevitable. So all the conflicts in relationships and all the conflicts in life and all the global conflicts are founded in being identified with the conceptual mind and then choosing sides in a sense. Okay, so you meet someone like Sid Banks and he thinks the intellect is cool, but he's not interested in that. He's woken up to there's another dimension of reality that's always been here that gets obscured or covered up, or we're unable to experience it while we're in our conceptual mind. And he has this first experience of falling out of his conceptual mind and realizing that every bit of his feeling is being created from within, from beyond the physical, from beyond the conceptual. It was the birth of his experiencing life, as we say, inside out. That's the only way life works. Whatever you feel is being created from within, from this infinite, formless field of energy that we're participating in. So it's a mistake to say what I'm feeling is being created by something on the outside. It's a misunderstanding that's been around for hundreds of years. So we have feelings of stress and we blame it on circumstance rather than I'm experiencing a thought created from within. It's not right or wrong, good or bad. It's God manifesting in this particular form. And without a story and without labels and judgments, there's no problem. There's no struggle. I'm a baby having an experience. I'm not comparing, I'm not judging, I'm not wishing I felt something different. I'm not in the self-improvement mentality. I'm just at peace, relaxed, experiencing life directly. So at a certain point, Sid's teaching changed and he started to emphasize what he learned from his enlightenment experience. And enlightenment is something available to all of us. It's not extraordinary. I'm convinced now. It's not. It has nothing to do with it. We all experience it in moments. It just means that anytime any one of us falls beyond the influence of our conceptual mind, it's what we call the now. It's not the now in time, but before concepts of time. So it's before past, present, and future. It's the only thing that exists is just this. That when any human being falls beyond their conceptual mind, they begin to experience truth, which is we're already one and united. We always have been, we always will be, we always are, we can't not be. And the experience of that is we feel more connected. So if I'm walking in the woods and I'm in my personal thinking, I'm in the world of duality and separation and difference and dissatisfaction. Somewhere to go, somewhere to be, past, present, future. Can't wait to get to where I'm going. I won't even necessarily see any beauty or experience beauty. I fall out of my thinking, there's beauty everywhere. 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 Because that's the experience of unity, of connection, of prior existing connection, of our true nature. So the paradox is if we want to experience our true self, we have to discover that our imagined self is not who we are. It's not truth. It's not life. Right? I can be in my personal thinking about my wife and be annoyed at what I think she's doing and wish she would stop it and do something different. And I'm feeling agitated and annoyed. And when I'm in my conceptual mind, that's a problem. This is very complicated, and there's a lot that has to take place, and she's got to certainly change before I can feel better. And for many, many years, I took on ego's challenge.
How did you do?
Dickens zero, life 400,000. It was not, I did not have a good batting percentage. So it was just fun to be around Sid, not so much for what he said, but he was so comfortable with not knowing anything. And just falling into this space, if you will, of presence. It was more fun going to dinner with Sid than listening to him talk, because you listen to him talk and you're trying to learn something as opposed to unlearn everything. All right, it was fun to just sit there and watch him chuckle, or every bite was the best bite he had ever eaten. Because he's like a baby. It's just like, oh my God. No judgments. No, it should be better. It should be different. None of that. Now that's our legacy. That's our birthright. That's our nature. That's for a long time in the early days, Sid would say there's two worlds. There's the world of separation and conflict and difference, and then all of us have moments when we go beyond that thinking, beyond that world. We fall out of or drop our personal thinking. We, for one moment, stop believing our thinking. Can still be there. We're just not paying attention to it or listening to it or believing it. We're just being, plain and simple. And then we discover that in that quiet, there's always a feeling of connection that can take 1,000 different forms, but it's still the same feeling of being more connected to a tree, to my wife, to the dog or cat, to the flower. There's feelings of gratitude, of compassion, of caring, of love. The words become less and less important to you. The experience is pretty friggin' cool. I tell you that to know that we're like turtles. We have our home with us wherever we go, and whenever we fall out of our conceptual mind, we come home, metaphorically, where we feel more relaxed, more open, more comfortable. And it has nothing to do with our situation or our physical circumstance. In the past couple of years, I've had to have 3 major operations. And I went through an enormous amount of physical discomfort and pain. And either I'm in my conceptual mind where I'm thinking, I can't stand this, this is horrible, I'm being tortured, when is this going to stop? This is taking forever. Oh my God, I hate this. I don't want to feel this way. When am I going to feel better? And then waking up out of that thinking. And now I'm a baby having experiences. That's what true love is, true happiness. And the paradox is immediately I could be kind to the nurse. Even though I'm in pain, even though I'm in a low mood, has nothing to do with moods, has nothing to do with this life, nothing to do with this world. When we fall out of our conceptual mind, we fall out of thoughts that create the illusion of separation and difference and problem and better future. Everyone does. And then, without even trying, we find ourselves being kinder, more compassionate, more understanding. It's not something we have to work on or develop, it's our nature. So I don't know. The way I like to think of it is love is our nature. And when I feel problem, difference, separation, stress, tension, upset, it's just letting me know that I'm caught up in my conceptual mind. And when I wake up out of that personal, thought-created, imagined, illusory world, I fall into what Sid called pure consciousness, which is awareness free of the contamination of our conceptual mind. And the feeling of that is always one of connection. This is why Sid says we're a thought away from well-being in every moment. Well, the thought away is, well, at one point he says, you know what that thought is? And I'm thinking he's going to tell me. I was still hanging on hope that he's going to tell me what thought I should be thinking. And he goes, it's the state of thoughtlessness. The state of no thought. In other words, the instant we disconnect from our intellect, we'll find what we're looking for. Presence, now, connection, aliveness, the ability to have every thought and feeling as an experience. It's all just the cosmic dance of life energy, of spirit, of God. We're just participating in this great dance.
It's just fun, isn't it?
And then it's fun. Then it's like Sid says, you get really good then at going back and forth between those two worlds. You go into the conceptual mind, it's a playground, you have fun, you think about things, you talk about things, you communicate. And then at any moment, we can fall out of that. That's one way of talking about free will, is when ego makes the decision to disengage. It's what I call ego in service of wisdom. That's when we say intellect's a pretty cool tool. If you use it wisely, you can even use it to disconnect. You can close the laptop anytime you want. You don't have to stay on the screen all day. That's one way of talking about free will. If we talk about non-duality, it gets even cooler to talk about free will then. Because here's the deal. Life itself is making choices. I watch flowers. They open up and then they, if you will, choose to turn to the sun. No thinking involved. I find that when Sid says we have free will, first of all, is most egos, or a lot of people, when they have no idea that they live in the world of thought, they feel like everything they experience is being done to them by life. Things are making them feel bad and things are making them feel good. So they live at a level of understanding or consciousness where it doesn't even seem like there's any free will. We're just victims of life and circumstance. And then you begin to see more about thought and you begin to see, wait a minute, I'm a free thinker. That's just my own personal thinking. That's just my ideas. I can stop thinking about something if I want to, or I can think about something else, right? And then you begin to experience enormous empowerment. It's very helpful at that level of understanding where you're just beginning to move away from a completely materialistic outside-in view of life to a little more inside-out view of life. And then you reach a certain point when there is you don't experience ego much anymore, and choices still happen. And then it's not my will, but thy will be done. Feels like God is choosing, but I'm not separate or different from God. Or I love metaphors, so my way of saying it would be, at first we think we're a separate wave, and we always are comparing ourselves to other waves, and we're always afraid that our wave is going to disappear. So we're always living in this kind of existential fear of death, right? And then you begin to, like Sid Banks comes along, he says, Dicken, stop looking out at the other waves and comparing. You're doing that all day long. Look down, look within. And I look down, there's nothing but water as far as I can see. It's like, wow. So now I think I'm a wave that's connected to the ocean. That's a higher level of understanding. And at some point I have the experience, I am the ocean. And waving happens.
Oh, neat. Okay.
See the difference? So you can talk about free will at any one of those three levels. They're completely different discussions.
Dominic, does that kind of address your question a little bit about free will there?
Sorry. Yeah, that's good for now.
I think that's the shortest sentence I've ever heard Dominic speak.
It's a good question. It's a little bit like at one point people experience life as if there's no free will, and then they begin to say, wait a minute, I can make choices, and I'm not a victim of life, and I'm the thinker, and that's hugely empowering. That can really change somebody's life, really help them. They're living with so much more well-being. And then at a certain point, less and less are you identified that who I am has anything to do with this physical being independent and separate. So the true self is not the formless. The true self is the unity of form and form.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So a lot of people are saying the true self is non-physical and beyond the body, and we are not the body. That's not the ultimate statement of non-duality. That's still a very dualistic self and not self, body and not body conceptualization. So at a certain point, you go beyond that, and then you can only speak in paradox. I am my body, but I'm not my body. I'm not my body and my body simultaneously. I'm formless and form. It's the Heart Sutra in Buddhism.
Right.
If people are familiar with that. Or you read Ramana Maharshi, and he talks about this constantly. But the simple, ordinary thing is that I can talk to kids about being caught up in their thinking and not being caught up in their thinking, and the difference in that, and the difference in their feeling. I can talk with my grandkids and talk about how we live in the world of thought, and we can be free of our personal thinking in moments, and our feelings change. So Sid would say things like that. I love these kind of statements. Truth is always found in silence and a nice feeling. Not a nice feeling in a dualistic sense of better than other feelings, but anger without concept is a nice feeling.
Yeah.
Anger with concepts contracts and is painful. Anger without concepts is just a very strong, powerful energy that radiates. And when feeling radiates, it's a nice feeling. I think people can relate to times when you've been, like if you've been with a loved one who's dying, you can experience sadness that is a very strong contraction, and it's very painful. And then you can experience a sadness that's sacred. Just sacred. I mean, I've been fortunate to have been with several people, friends, and family who have gone through that dying process with them. And it's, if you fall out of your thinking, you'll say that's one of the most sacred events you've ever been through. Because there's no separation. You feel this love, you feel this connection, you feel the naturalness and aliveness. There's no judgment at all. That's why the Dalai Lama says love is just the absence of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the absence of the conceptual mind, because every concept is a judgment.
Mm-hmm.
One time George Bransky said, "Dicken, don't you know everything you think is a lie?" Because I thought some thoughts were worth hanging on to, and I'm going, no, these thoughts are not a lie. Those are, but not my favorites. Okay, let's open it up to questions. I think we have 20 minutes or so.
That was brilliant, Dicken. Sorry, you got me a little emotional there. I just feel like I want to share this. My father passed away about a year ago, like coming right up, and just the way that you were describing the feeling of the feelings was just so spot on. Like just really deep sadness, but that just carried absolutely no sadness. Yeah. Like it was strangely light and full. Like it was just, I would describe it as sad, but it just wasn't. Like it was such an experience of connection and normalcy and just absolutely how this thing is supposed to work. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it was really neat. I just you got me tearing up there a little bit. So in terms of questions, should we open up all the mics? Can we trust ourselves to do that? Let's see what happens. Oh, here we go. A couple more. Catherine, I know you had a question about parenting in there from the Facebook. From our text back and forth. Do you want to?
Sure. Dicken touched on it when he talked. Hi, Dicken. It's so nice to. I see you a lot, but it's really nice to be here live with you.
Yeah, thank you.
I just love hearing you talk about your grandson and what you see when you spend time with young children. It's so beautiful. And so I wondered, I've often heard some of the teachers in the three principles say that they never taught their children the three principles. Now, I just got a sense when you talked about how you've spoken to children about being caught up in thought or not. So I wondered, did you tell your children about something called the three principles, or did you just live into the understanding? Or was there ever a time when you actually said, this is a thing, and this man named Sid Bang? Because I wondered if
I've done all of the above.
Yeah, okay.
It's the simplest way. And if I thought too much about it, it got very complicated.
Yeah.
And when I wasn't thinking about it, stuff would come out of my mouth. And sometimes it would say something about thought or something. It's what my wife and I would call planting seeds. Mm. No expectation that anything's going to grow right then, but we're just planting seeds. And at some point, we trusted that the wisdom in our kids would nourish those seeds and they would take fruit. So at times, it wasn't very complicated. My wife and I just had to take responsibility in a sense for our own state of mind. And that time and time again, we would feel the blessing that comes when you have the courage to let go of everything you think and believe about parenting and kids and what they should do and shouldn't do, and see what new and fresh shows up. And you learn to trust new and fresh as opposed to your ideas that we're going to do fair in our family. I read that somewhere and I'm sticking to it. And after a while I go, I don't do fair. We'll see what occurs to me this time. Sometimes it'll be yes, sometimes it'll be no, but has nothing to do with fair as far as I can see. I did begin to value the feeling of being in parenting. I began to tell the difference between when I was in my personal thinking, because there would be so much tension in it, and times when I would wake up out of that thinking and the tension itself would radiate. So I didn't have to wait for a better feeling. Of late, it occurred to me to just say that every feeling is love in disguise.
Mm.
It's all the same one energy. Right? Otherwise, we judge feelings as being good and bad, and we're looking for a certain feeling of love as opposed to every moment. But for our concepts, there is nothing but unity, connection. And it embraces the whole of humanity. Right? And that it just makes it a little bit easier to be both human and divine with your kids.
That's so beautiful. What I hear you saying maybe is in non-resistance, everything that's flowing through us originates in love. And so there's nothing to fear.
Yeah. It doesn't just originate in love. It all is one. It's the way Sid defined the one principle is it's all the same energy, whether in form or formless. And the realization, a moment of experiencing that, which can't be experienced by the intellect, by the way. It's only when we let go of everything we think and believe, we will begin to experience a greater, how I see it now, it's just a greater sense of the connection that's already true. So we feel closer to someone, or we become kinder, or more understanding, or more caring, or more compassionate, or more grateful, just naturally, without trying to be compassionate, loving, grateful. It's not the Oprah Winfrey gratitude making lists kind of deal. It's just natural.
That, if I could ask, so you said about feeling and like no distinction between feelings. And then in your book, and a lot in the community too, there's this idea of the deeper feeling. What is that distinction?
Well, there really isn't. But it can be helpful to a certain person and at a certain point in time in their development. In the same way free will can. Right? If you talk non-dualistically to a lot of people, it'll go right over their heads. You're telling them they're not what they're convinced they are. Now, when someone's ready, that's the most beautiful thing you can say. Then I can say everything is love, and I don't make distinctions. Everything is God, and I don't make distinctions. Right? But I'm not going to throw my intellect out with, I'm not throwing baby out with the bathwater. The intellect is a beautiful tool. And the intellect can be of service to wisdom. Right? So sometimes it can be helpful. So when I talk to someone, I see if what I say is helpful or not. If it's not helpful, I can speak a different language. So one moment talking, you have to be kinder to your wife is helpful, even though that's making a distinction and that's creating a duality of you and your wife as if there's two separate beings in the room. Sid, listen to Sid. He'll break every rule you think there is about duality and non-duality. He will talk so dualistically it's pathetic, and then the next minute he's talking in the most incredible, it's like the highest Dzogchen teaching you could hear. Right? Because both are true. I love his chapter on non-duality, because the biggest mistake in duality is to think that the formless is truth. It's a big mistake to think form is true. But Sid says you have to learn to see in the singular. So it includes all that we call non-duality. So he was very comfortable jumping in and out of duality because people were so wedded to their ideas about how things should be. He would confound the intellect, and it would be very hard to hold on to concepts when you were around Sid, because as soon as he saw you holding on to any concept, even the most spiritual, he'd pull the rug out from under you.
Arvin's having a good time.
Is that helpful, Dominic?
Yeah, very, very. Yeah, thanks.
You know, people can make rules very easily, you know, about things, and rules are just another concept. You know, it's like for a long time, I had a lot of rules about the principles. You should only talk to people when you're in a good mood. Right? You should live in the present moment as opposed to the now. Don't give people advice. Don't ever tell people what to do. Oh, I had a long list. Right? But what I do know is when I fall out of my conceptual mind, I keep being surprised what I say to people. And then the real question is it of service? Is it helpful? For me, that's important. When there's less personal thinking on my end, I'm more interested in helping the other person, and I can see more easily how when they get wedded to any thought or idea, they're going to suffer. So I have compassion.
Would it be fair to say, Dicken, that anytime we're talking in absolutes, one way or another, that we're talking from the personal mind or from the...
Yeah, it's well, an absolute in terms of a concept. This whole notion that there's never a concept that can carry truth is helpful if you understand that a concept is helpful because it limits the vast, infinite nature of life down to something manageable. Right? So I can plan a trip to Costa Rica. Otherwise, I would never make it there. I'd be like my grandson at the playground. We'd say, "You want to go on the swing?" And he goes, "Yes, swing." And we start walking toward the swing, which is on the other side of the playground. He never can get there. It's just like there's a dog, there's a flower, And then he'd go over and be with the dog, and I say, "You want to go on the swing?" Yes, yes, the swing. We'd never get there. And once we realized it doesn't matter if we ever get there, we had the idea he wanted to go swinging. You know?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's great to just have an idea and go for it. One of my rules used to be don't set goals. Now, sometimes it's fun to set a goal. I'm going to go swinging, and then I go swinging. I don't. And then other times, I love going out for a walk where I have no idea where I'm going to go. And I am like then my little 2-year-old. I just go wherever, whatever looks interesting.
Wow.
Any other questions? Anybody else?
Dicken,
Yes.
are you going to be in, hey, Dicken, are you going to be in Brattleboro this coming August?
Well, I'm talking with Andy about it.
Okay.
And we both think it's going to happen, but he has so many variables in his life right now. He's moved, he's been in Spain. So the answer is most likely, but I'm not sticking to it.
Is this like a duality distinction on what you're going to do in the future?
Yeah, very much. Very much.
No, when you were saying about you said something, but when I came across the principles, the thing that had helped me the most was seeing my dad as not the way that I used to see him. It was gone in like a second. And I've said this often to some people that the last 10 weeks of my dad's life was the best in our relationship, because I finally was able to when the principles allowed me to actually let myself love my father.
Yeah.
And to me, that has been the most powerful gift of it. Seeing how I was separating myself from allowing other people to get close and to be loved. The thing that I try to do, I wanted the most, is the thing that kept me away. By keeping myself safe from not getting hurt, I perpetuated. And I remember one night after Michael Neal's book, I remember just thinking, oh my God, I've been creating this man that I thought was my father. And I remember having this image in my head of my hands going like that. And then the next moment he calls me and says, "Yeah, do you want to take me to the casino?" And that was like at, I don't know, 9 o'clock at night. And I didn't even question it. And it was in, like, having the feeling of being with this man and knowing that he was exactly the father I needed to have in that moment. That's all that mattered. Like, he was asking me, "Why are you crying?" I said, "Oh, I'm all right." But I was crying because the first time I actually felt, I don't know, maybe the love of the father. I don't know what to explain, Dicken.
It ultimately, it can't be explained.
No.
When we fall out of our labeling, judging, conceptualizing mind, there are no explanations, and no explanations are needed. No words are really needed. It's just this feeling of connection that's a free gift to us because it's already the case.
Yeah.
I'm just looking over the questions now, Dominic, that you sent me, and it feels like we've touched on all of them.
The one thing I'd ask is about the that which is created.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that which is created cannot create. And I remember I was in Super Coach, and you did a master class, and boy, you said that, and it just was like, whoa. But yeah, if you could just talk about that.
I'll read the quote real quick, Dominic. Nothing that has already been created has the power to create. Nothing on the outside of you can make you feel a certain way. Only that which has the power to create can create. think that's the one, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That just popped out of my mouth one day when I was talking, Dominic. I have no idea where that came from. It was just but it came really fresh, and it rang true. I like now just resting in this space of being all during the day, or even while talking to you folks. There's moments of just sort of setting, instead of thinking my thoughts, I just set them down like setting down a snow globe. And there's a natural settling. Or one Buddhist teacher talks about it as melting, dissolving. That and more you begin to get a sense of this open presence, and then a thought shows up, and then it goes away. And a feeling shows up, and you just are aware of it, and then it just changes or disappears or morphs into something different. And you begin to experience the truth that they talk about in quantum physics, that there's this quantum field, and then the miracle of life is in this vacuum, in this formless quantum space, if you will. Even space is just a word, but things appear. So they say on a subatomic level, matter is just temporary condensations of energy that show up and dissolve. So people have used all different metaphors through the ages, like a wave coming and going. Linda Pransky used the metaphor of a water fountain. Our experience takes form and then it goes back into the formless. When we start thinking that form creates form, it's not scientific. It's not what it's really like in our experience. If you get quiet, that's not how it happens. If I as a form could create, I could immediately create whatever feeling I wanted in each of you. I'd have that power to create. Now, that's ego. That's arrogant, to think I can create feelings in someone. Now, in the non-dual world, everything influences everything else because it's all interconnected. So it's not like we don't influence each other, which people have turned that into a rigid concept. Well, nobody can make me feel anything. Oh, that's such bullshit. That's crazy. We get affected in the same way that a flower is affected by light. We get affected by things, but we are still living in the experience of a thought-created reality. Both are true. The good news is we're never limited to what we're thinking and experiencing, because if we don't hold that in thought, it'll morph and change. It's the nature. It's what in Buddhism they call impermanence. It's gonna change. There's nothing you have to do for it to change. And you can't think it into a form that you want. You get out of the way and it changes. Or as Sid would say, the most important thing a human being can learn is to change their mind, that you can change your mind. And then he says, oh, but there's one problem. There's one problem. You can't change your mind with your little mind. Only a big mind can do that. So we can change our mind, but not with our little mind. This is the kind of language that comes out of this experience of the oneness of all of this.
Well, yeah, and on that part, what you just said there, it's like the way I hear that is you can allow your mind to change.
Yes.
But you can't.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, you can't change it. And
Yeah.
so it's, and maybe that also relates from a free will perspective, is I can allow something new.
Yes.
Like I can.
That's how I often think of free will, is if I know I'm caught, if I know this feeling is created by my personal thinking, my dualistic thinking, I can allow that to fall away and I can allow something new to come in.
Yeah.
I'm not in control over what comes in, but as Sid promised over and over again, it's going to be better.
It's going to be good.
He said, if we can take one little step beyond our precious thought system, we'll touch a space where something beautiful must come into our experience.
So then on that, because, so nothing that's been created has the power to create, that the quote that was there. Later or before, another quote said, you use the formless principles of mind, consciousness, and thought to create every experience you have.
You do, as big mind. It depends on who you think the you is that's doing it. In truth, you do, but not as ego. I mean, that's the whole spiritual teaching right there, is that if we think ego is doing it, we're trying and working and efforting and struggling and being dissatisfied and wanting a better future, and we're living in time. Now, that's torment. That's psychological suffering. And then you wake up to that fact and you fall out of time and duality and torment. And then something new and fresh shows up. So Sid would say, you're looking for the new and fresh. But in order to get the new and fresh, you have to let go of the old. So in a sense, ego can let go and allow wisdom to create through this being something new and fresh. Through this physical being, something new and fresh. So it's not me thinking I can do the creating, but I can, in a sense, let go. So that's why sometimes people say, if you go halfway, God will meet you the other half. If you have the courage to just let go of everything you're thinking, God will do the rest. You don't have to worry about the rest.
Man, I hate to be the one who looks.
I have a quick question.
just hold on one second.
Okay, a quick question, because I have a hungry grandson here who's 14 and he's always hungry, and I'm taking him out for dinner tonight. So.
Oh, nice.
But what's the question? What?
I just, after living in this understanding, is there a question that you would go back and ask Sid if you could?
Ooh.
Just a light question to finish things off.
It was so funny. Often Sid would just start every talk by saying, does anybody have any questions, just to sort of get me going? It almost didn't matter what question you asked. His answer was always the same. He's always saying, beyond the limitations of your personal thinking, there's a whole nother world. Please don't take my word for it. You get to know that world better. And the quiet and the feeling in that space will teach you everything you're trying to learn and want to know. And so I would be thrilled to ask him any question. Hey, Sid, how was your trip to Scotland? is as good as, can you explain the non-dual nature of reality? Because his answer was the same. He was so passionate about the beauty of the whole shebang and getting your own experiential sense. He was so confident every single one of us already has been having non-dual experiences, not recognizing it. You know, little moments of happiness that we attribute to circumstance rather than seeing our nature revealing itself. Or being upset, but not thinking about it, so an experience of ease in the face of that, or being at peace with whatever you're experiencing. So most any question would do it. I always asked him about love, or it seemed that way to me. It was because that's what I just wanted to have a greater sense of love, and my understanding of that has changed considerably over the years as I've had more insight into the nature of life.
That's beautiful.
Okay, folks.
Thank you so much, Dick.
He's sitting right there looking at me.
Oh, is he there?
Yeah.
Thanks for your generosity.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dicken.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Bye, Dick.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy
Thanks,
your
Michael.
dinner.
Enjoy.
See you.
I will.
All right, I'm clicking and goodbye, everyone.
See you.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Michael,
Appreciate it.
for setting this all up.
That's awesome. Cheers, guys. We'll talk soon. Oh,
Bye.
see you, Finley. Hello.
See you. Bye. Good seeing you again.
Yeah, see you guys.